Welcome back to part 2 of our interview with Charlotte Smith of 3 Cow Marketing and Shampooing Creamery. In part 1, we discussed how farmers need to price their products to stay in business. In today's conversation, we'll find out the vital role raw milk plays in the health of Charlotte's family, which type of cow's milk is easiest to digest, how to ensure your access to real food in the future, and much, much more. Coming up next on the Nutrition Heretic Podcast.
Meet Gina. Gina wanted to lose weight, so she spent 2 years fasting, detoxing, and dabbling with vegan diets while practicing a shit ton of yoga to lose 25 pounds. But it took so long that nobody noticed. Then, Gina started Frenching her food by eating fatty cheeses, butter, sausages, and red meat, and lost 15 more pounds in only 2 months. Everybody noticed this time. Frenching your food unlocks the riddle of weight loss that skinny French chicks use to slim down, look young, and live longer despite doing everything wrong. Be like Gina. Start Frenching your food today by visiting nutritionheretic.com/Frenching.
Fat is bad for you.
I just pop a pill and I'm fine.
Meat is murder.
It's time for bad food punishment. It's time for real nourishment. It's time for the Nutrition Heretic.
The following program is provided as information only and may not be construed as medical or health advice. It is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease. No action or inaction should be taken solely on the basis of the information provided here. Please consult with a licensed healthcare professional or doctor on any matter relating to your health and well-being.
So tell me, because you've brought it up many times, tell me about the raw milk, how you got into it, and how it's changed your health and your life.
Sure. Well, so my kids are 23 and 20, almost 10. So my 23 and 20-year-old, when they were 6, weird thing, both of them, when they turned 6, they developed eczema. Mm-hmm. So my daughter had eczema for 6 years. And as a mother, any mother of sick children, you'll do anything to help your kids feel better. And it was really awful. It was debilitating. It was all over her face. It was painful, red, all the time. My son had bloody, scabby hands all the time from itching, and it was over his body. So over that 6 years, people would recommend all sorts of things. Like, have you tried this herb and this salve and this cream and this vitamin and this? And I tried everything, again, like any good mother would do. You run out and buy it, and nothing worked. Well, someone mentioned that a doctor in California, which was Dr. Thomas Cowan, and had been recommending, people were using raw milk to heal their kids' eczema. Well, I never heard of raw milk 12 years ago. I didn't even know what that. It was like, really? They don't boil it? Oh, that's weird. And it was very hard to find in Oregon because we have this weird law. You can have 3 cows or fewer, which makes it horrendously expensive to produce.
Oh, of course. Well, that's why they do it. Well, we'll let you do it, but it's going to cost you.
Yeah. So there's hardly any raw milk producers still today. And they go out of business very quickly because they don't price it at a point to stay in, to even pay the bills. So they're out of business very quickly. So I found this place. It was kind of underground. And I had no expectations because in 6 years, nothing else had worked with my kids. And I brought home this raw milk, and I think we had a glass a day. We just, here it's dinner time. Everyone has to have a glass of this milk. And 2 weeks later, my son came out and showed me the backs of his hands were just pure, smooth skin. The bloody scabby that he'd been for his 3 years of eczema was totally gone within 2 weeks.
Wow.
And so I looked over the rest of his body. All his eczema patches were completely gone, and they've never come back. And then my daughter had it for longer. Hers started subsiding right away, and it took about 6 months to go away completely, and it didn't come back. So then we just kept drinking it, that was the first thing. And I didn't think much about it until a year later. I looked back over the year and I thought, up until that point, a mother of a 12 and a 9-year-old, I was used to my kids having at least 1 or 2 ear infections during the winter.
Yeah.
And 1 round of antibiotics. And that was normal. Actually, that was really good because many of their classmates would have 3 or 4 rounds of antibiotics in the winter.
Exactly.
So I thought we were.
You thought you were
healthy.
ahead of the game, right?
I did. And we were eating the standard American diet. I thought, aren't we healthy? Well, I looked back and realized that no one got sick. No one had antibiotics. It was just crazy. And that was the only thing we changed that first year.
That's what I was going to ask you. I'm like, are you sure Tom didn't tell you to do something else? Because that's insane.
And that's all we changed because, again, I was a busy mom of these 2 kids, busy in school, and I didn't have time to even read or research it. It was like, okay, I found my thing that cured their eczema, and that was it. And that's all we changed was the addition. At that point, we hadn't even taken any of the bad food out. Like we were still eating a lot of processed food. So really just all we'd done was the addition of raw milk.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And I love that because dairy haters, I'm calling you. The people who are like, oh, dairy's so bad for you. It doesn't do anything. It just mucus, blah, 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 blah.
It does when it's pasteurized. Yeah.
Exactly. It's not the milk. It's what we did to milk.
Pasteurized milk
antibiotics and all the other jazz.
Yeah. It's the number 1 most allergenic food in America, pasteurized milk.
Right.
Yet people are using raw milk to combat their allergies. Oh, and that's the other thing. So I used to have terrible hay fever. Mm-hmm. Six months out of the year, I was on over-the-counter allergy medicine just to be able to leave the house. And I could not spend much time out in a grass field, even on the medication. Well, my allergies went away completely in the first 2 years. So then after that, I was got more involved in the Weston Price Foundation, found a source for grass-fed beef. And over those first few years, we gradually started learning how to bring in higher quality foods and stop cooking with, bad oils and started cooking with coconut oil. And now we cook with all our own pastured pork lard. And so it was a gradual process, but the initial healing was so quick and so just big, and complete. It was amazing. So then, like I said earlier, we lost our raw milk source 3 times. Our farmer went out of business because it's a very, very, very expensive and also very hard on family life. So then I thought, well, I grew up in the country. I worked on the farm all my life till I went to college. I could have a milk cow. So that's when I started taking the business side of it. And I spent a year researching it before I brought home my first dairy cow, and I had customers built up and everything. And when I brought home my first dairy cow, we had a waiting list from the very start. And it was really just sharing my story of my kids healing and how healthy we were, and people got on board and were excited, moms groups and all that. It was just my network of people at first, and then it's expanded huge over the years. But even at the time I thought, well, we were paying, we're probably paying $12 a gallon for raw milk. I thought, well, for sure, we're going to save all this money bringing a milk cow home. And I can tell you this, it is still cheaper to go buy raw milk than have your own dairy cow in most cases. Not just, because it is very expensive, but also the price you pay for family life and all that.
Right. Yeah. And, I was going to comment before, and I'm not going to say who this person is, but somebody in my family thinks that I, entirely waste too much time and money on my milk and my meat and everything. This person easily goes to Whole Foods once a week and drops $600 and then eats out most of the week.
Yeah. And Whole Foods is just fancy processed food. It's just more expensive.
Exactly.
And it's all the meat is from out of the country.
Yep.
With our labeling laws here in Oregon, most people don't realize that I can bring meat from anywhere in the world to my farm. As long as I package it on my farm, I can say it's from my farm.
And you know what? I had an Amish farmer who told me something very similar. He went over he saw one of his, it was Reading Terminal Square in Philadelphia. They have a market. So he was in there one day and he sees this Amishman who, has his label about Amish meat. And he goes, "Oh, I'm in that town. Where's your farm located? I don't know that farm." And he goes, "Oh, well, I don't actually raise it there. I import it from Fiji and then I leave it on my farm for 24 hours, slap a label on it, and I can say that it's, from Amish country."
Yeah. So
and he,
to me, I instantly think, wow, and I'm going to lump myself in this category. Wow, we Americans are so stupid.
mm-hmm.
We allow this to go on. We know
Right.
this on some level, but we allow it to go on. And it drives me nuts going to restaurants here in the Portland area. There's this slaughterhouse called Carlton Farms, and it's a slaughterhouse and they've done a magnificent job of marketing. They painted a green pasture on the side of their delivery truck and put some cows out there. And so all these restaurants think they're buying farm fresh meat that was raised in Carlton, but all of it, 90% of it's from outside the country. They bring it here, they package it, put their label on it. So it's like, I hate when a waiter will say, "Oh yeah, that's our $75 filet mignon tonight from Carlton Farms that came from Japan or Mexico," or and there's no grass in Mexico, they're
Right.
eating grass. Yeah, so
Oh my
we're just
gosh.
so duped, and we've just come to, like you said earlier, trust that the government allows this, so therefore it must be raised on that green pasture down the street.
Yeah.
Otherwise the police would shut them down. Well, no.
Well, and the other thing about this person in my family spends 3 to 4 times a month at the doctor's with the kids with all kinds of infections and this and that, and constantly.
Yes.
I don't think I've ever seen these kids without the antibiotic being force fed into them.
Right.
It's
And
crazy.
that quality of life, and then their
I'm like,
fertility
really?
when
I'm
they
like-
get in their 20s and 30s, and then their children are going to be born and have autism.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
going to get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, so you can't pony up 20 minutes a night to just get something on the table, but you can sit in the doctor's office for hours on end and then traipse over to the drugstore and spend a bunch of time in there.
Yeah.
I think my life is a little bit more streamlined. It may not be easy all the time, but we don't have to go to the doctor.
Yeah.
And
again, often people don't make that shift until it's much more serious, until
exactly.
you finally get a disease that's debilitating, and it's no longer just going to the doctor's office. And then finally they decide to change their nutrition.
Right. Yeah. I'd play catch up at the end.
Yeah.
What now? This is something that's interesting. You mentioned Sally Fallon, and she has a farm now.
Yes.
When I visited her farm, she said, because her husband, was a farmer in New Zealand, she said to me that when they decided to buy the farm, he told her that he would only do a farm if they only milked once a day in the morning and skipped the afternoon milking, because they get 80% of the milk with half the work and more butterfat and half the work. Did you find that to be true with your farming? And have you heard that before?
So I'm a dairy farmer. I know raw milk inside and out, and those are nice numbers that he can throw around. But no, it's not. It's not that at all. It's not that at all. And you can go to once a day milking is wonderful if you can afford it, because you can schedule it for any time of day. You can have your once a day milking be at noon.
Right.
Therefore, you can have breakfast and dinner with your family again. So it's very nice for family life. But no, you don't get 80% of the milk. There's no way. You don't even get 50% of the milk, because milking once a day, and it's also not half the cost either. So
I think she just means half the time, and because you're only milking once, so you don't have to be out there twice.
No, that sounds good in theory, but I would never tell a dairy farmer those numbers. You're going to get less than half. So we've done that on our farm, and the cows still take up the same amount of ground. We pasture, we move to fresh pasture every single day. So they're still using the same amount of pasture, and you probably get about a third the milk.
Okay.
You will at first, but just think of a woman, and when you stimulate her mammary glands, the more you stimulate them, nursing her baby, the more milk she produces. And then when you cut back on nursing your baby, your body adjusts over a few weeks and produces less milk. And when you start nursing because this is what I went through, the very last year of nursing, because my kids nursed till they were older. Well, not that old, 2.5, not like 12. But,
there was an April Fool's joke about that.
Yeah. Oh.
I was reading it the other day. I was like, oh, this is just 15 years old. What is she, nuts?
Yeah, right. So the last 6 months of nursing was I nursed them before bed, and gradually over time, my milk production decreased. And I know this is very intimate and personal, but a lot of mothers are the ones doing the farming and doing the marketing and listening to these podcasts, and they can relate. So it's against common sense to even think that you could get 80% of the production.
Right.
It's against nature. It goes against everything. So maybe the first week you switch to once a day, you will get high production because those cows are still adjusting. Their bodies are still producing milk for twice a day. But 6 weeks later, 8 weeks later, you're going to drop from 5 gallons a day to 1 gallon a day. And I know this because of my own experience, but also working with hundreds of dairy farmers. So no, that is not the answer to a sustainable dairy farm.
Oh, okay.
So we did that for a year, and then I did my taxes again, and it was like, holy cow, I can't, because I have to be profitable in order to be in business. I couldn't sustain that. And it was like, we went back to milking twice a day.
Right. Okay, good. That's one of those things. It's like one of those factoids somebody throws at you, and you're like, does this really play out the way? Like you said, it sounds good in theory, but there's always more than meets the eye.
Like if you're making your money on your farm doing grass-fed beef, and you want to have a milk cow in the backyard and feed your family and leave the calf on it and raise one calf a year and milk it once a day. Oh, that's perfect for that. It's perfect for 1 or 2 gallons a day. But if you're trying to have a raw milk dairy with a business, no, it's not really feasible.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So what kind of breeds are you advocating for when it comes to dairy cows? Because, we know that the Holstein was designed, built, bred, whatever, for quantity more so than butterfat. What are your favorite breeds and why?
Sure. Well, again, going back to knowing that most farmers don't make it past the 2-year mark, often, and going back to your chicken analogy, often people get into it with very idealistic dreams. They've read about these certain breeds. I have a student in our course who drives from Oregon to Missouri to pick up their specific breed of dairy cow. Well, that's not sustainable. You can't, every time you need a cow, you can't drive 5 or 6 states and sustain that for a long time. So you can be really idealistic, but if you're trying to have a sustainable dairy farm, you need to find something that's close by. Of course, I love the quality of milk from, we milk Jerseys and Brown Swiss. And I think nothing can beat the Jersey milk. But the reason I milk Jerseys is because one of my girlfriends, we grew up together. She's 3rd generation dairy farmer. She lives a mile from my house, and I can buy my Jerseys from them. So, and I can tell you this too, working in the health area of raw milk and being a raw milk producer and seeing my customers heal. If all you can find is a Holstein cow to get raw milk from, go ahead and get it, because I see people heal from raw milk from Holstein cows just as quickly and completely as raw milk from Jerseys. So
okay. As long as they're being fed the right way.
Fed the right way, but
the bacteria.
And also, when a Holstein on a conventional dairy is fed 25 pounds of grain a day, so they're producing this enormous amount of milk. When you feed them, graze them on grass, I don't have a Holstein, but if I did, it would just eat like my Jersey cow, and it would give me, the same 4 or 5 gallons a day, and it would have a very thick cream line. So a big Jersey on a conventional dairy is going to produce something that looks like skim milk, because the more quantity of milk a cow produces, the less fat is in that quantity. Yes. The less milk they produce, the more fat. So you can have a Holstein that produces just as good, and I see this in the healing of the people, the quality is the same. So But again, you've got those people who want to get started and get very idealistic. And even customers will have people that say, I only want to drink milk from this breed of cow.
Yes.
And it's like, well, you'll heal from any of them. So.
Right. Now, this actually brings up a really good question in my mind. A2 versus A1 milk. Do you get caught up in that?
No, I don't. And here's why. I've read the book. So what they say is that A1 cows have been modernized. Our cows, like the Holsteins, they've been modernized, and so they're missing one of their chromosomes is missing or altered, so that their milk is different than an old breed, such as a Jersey or a Guernsey or a Brown Swiss, or any of those older breeds. So therefore, you're going to have a bigger reaction to milk from a Holstein versus milk from these older breeds. And there's a genetic test you can do, take a hair sample and sample that. But again, I see just as many people healing from illness from the raw milk from Holstein cows as the raw milk from Jersey cows. So that kind of, I have evidence to show that the quality is the same. The other thing is there are a lot of now, because it's trendy, Holstein dairies testing their cows, sending it in for this A2 test. And sure enough, 50% of Holstein cows are A2 cows as well.
Aha.
So I don't see that has much foundation to it. And we milk older breeds. We milk the Jersey and the Brown Swiss. So there's a very high likelihood that our cows are A2, but I don't test them. And if all you have access to is milk from a Holstein, go for it. You are going to heal.
Right. See, my problem is that anytime, since I moved to Hawaii, I can't get a good cream line on my milk. I mean, it has cream, but when I used to buy from the Amish, I'd get this really thick cream, and it would be like easily a third to a half of a gallon of milk would be cream. And here, people are telling me that they're, feeding almost exclusively grass or sometimes exclusively grass. I think they're stealing the cream. Because I'm not getting that much cream off of the top, and it's watery when I do.
There's a lot of that, but is it legal in Hawaii? You're drinking raw milk, right?
Yeah, it's not legal.
Yeah, so we won't go into where you're getting it. And are they milking a Jersey or a Holstein, or do you know what kind
I
of
believe the one is a Holstein mix, and the other one's supposed to be a Jersey. These are
yeah. And so do you get it in the half-gallon jars, and it
like the mason jars?
And it has 2 inches of cream or less than that?
Less than that.
Yeah, you might talk to them about it, because if they only have a couple cows, the earlier in the lactation the cow is, the less cream they give, because the more volume they give. So if the cow just had a calf, there's like when our cows just calve, our cream line goes down, and everyone knows that. It's like, hey, she just had a calf. There's nothing I can do about it. But then you make up for it. So right now we have a cow at the end of her lactation, and some of her jars of milk are half cream. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to charge you extra for that.
Right.
Remember that when she has a calf. But if you're finding it is consistently the same year round, then yeah, I'd guess that the cream may be going elsewhere.
Right. Yeah. I know the one was also doing some butter, but the other one, he's not chessing up.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know you.
Here's where that whole relationship with your farmer comes in. You have to be able to look your farmer in the eye, and do you trust them? Would you sit down to dinner with them and trust everything they say? Because we've been at the butcher, we haul our chickens to a USDA butcher near here. And we'll be standing next to another farmer, and they'll say, "Oh, are yours organic?" And we'll say, "Oh, well, we do non-GMO." And so, "What about yours?" "Oh, yeah, we're organic." Well, we tell our customers that, but they don't know the difference.
Right, exactly.
So there is a lot of that going on in the farming world. So again, you have to be super ethical. You have to find someone who's very ethical and is complete alignment with their values and their practices. And that can be hard to find in any field, let alone farming.
Yeah. And actually, before I moved here, a friend of mine, her nephew, who suffered from a ton of allergies and then, made massive changes. He was living on a farm, down here. And, that's when he started drinking raw milk. And he said that the farmer who, the owner of the farm, would take the cream off and say that, oh, farmers' rights. And right. Basically screw the customer.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, there are some.
Yeah. I mean, that can be fine if you tell your customer, like.
Right. And then, then there's the freaks like me who just want the cream. Like
right.
For most purposes, I could care less about the actual milk. I just want cream. I like, like a nice creamy mashed potato or whatever.
Yeah.
Or,
it
homemade sour cream, mac and cheese with lots of good fresh cream and eggs in there. Oh my goodness. It just is so good.
We've had extra cream lately, and I made creme brulee over the weekend.
Oh.
And we didn't have guests over or anything, so we ate creme brulee every day for about 5 days. It was just out of this world.
I can think of worse things.
Yeah, right.
So tell me about some of these labels, because I think this is something that really stumps a lot of people. Organic, natural, grass-fed, and pastured. What do we have to look out for when it comes to these labels? Because I'm always telling people, don't get too hung up on organic, because of sort of what you say, about the guys that, they don't know the difference anyway. But also because it doesn't always mean what people think it means.
Right. Yep. I just wrote a blog post last week about it, and it was probably one of my most popular blog posts this year, because a lot of our customers, and I'm writing the blog post to my ideal customers, are women, 30s and 40s, shopping for their families. And we've been duped again into thinking that organic is the ultimate,
right.
And it's not. If there are levels to each one. Organic can be better in some cases. Pastured can be better. Grass-fed. Now, when you're talking, it's usually beef where they say grass-fed.
Yes.
And grass-fed, grass-finished beef is the ultimate. But there's no legal definition of either pastured or grass-fed. So That means we irrigate our pastures. They're 2 feet high of fast-growing lush grass most of the year, and that's what our cows are fed and finished on, our beef cows. It's unlike anything you've ever seen, and it makes a difference in the flavor and the nutritional value. So that's grass-fed. And my neighbor, who has her cow on a little lot and feeds them hay 12 months of the year because the pasture's so overused, there's no grass anymore, it's just a dirt lot. She can also call her beef cow grass-fed.
Jeez.
So then you come back to, and we do farm tours once a month in the summer so that our customers can get out on the pasture and see what a grass-fed cow actually looks like and is eating, because it's not what you think it is. And the way we do our beef, we're in the minority. So most grass-fed cows are eating hay most of the time and grass very little of the time. So and this is just our own personal standards. We're the only ones that hold ourselves to those standards. Now, pastured again there's no legal definition. So you can have a dirt lot and call your animal pastured, even though you and I think pastured means tall green grass.
Right.
Well, as long as it's a dirt lot, you can call it pastured and there's not a blade of grass in sight. So it comes back to, you can't only just know your farmer, you have to go to your farmer's farm. And that's why I say I have this dream of these, farms scattered all throughout the U.S. where their customers can visit them regularly and see, the grass and all that. And it holds their farmer to a higher standard too.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I love your relationship building. You talked about that at the beginning. Now you're telling me that you invite people actually to your farm to see what it's like. It's so important to be able to walk on the farm. I remember when I was in New Jersey, met this woman. She was really snarky with me. And, we were talking about milk and she's like, well, I get a milk delivery from blah, 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 blah. And I said, oh, well, I'd like to go out and know my farmer and, you know, see the farm and have the kids experience it and, you know, pet the goat, whatever. And she snapped at me and, I know my farmer is it. And she goes off on this like crazy tirade. And I'm thinking to myself, you're wacko, lady. But, you know, I think it's important. You know, I don't think she's ever seen the guy's farm. She knows the guy because he drops it off, but she never seen where he's raising this stuff.
Oh yeah. I've had people call me because, you know, they're on our raw milk wait list and they can't get it yet. And so they'll say, oh, I went to this other farm and I just had to talk to someone because have you ever been there? It's so awful. There's flies and this and that. And you only get that through visiting the farm because the labeling can do so much. If you put a label on your product, eggs or chicken or milk or whatever, and it's a grass pasture with the animal on it, people think that's what you have. They think you have, you know, this grass meadow with a few animals out there and no flies and no dirt. And
right.
The only way to know different is to visit the farm. So I think that's really super important. And again, trust that your farmer's telling you the truth and not showing you their farm and actually getting products from a CAFO or something like that. So.
Right. And yeah, there's a lot. One of the things that I have found is that very few will actually lie to my face, but they will more likely try to paint me as dumb for wanting certain things.
Right.
So, you know, like if I say, you know, I'm like, oh, is this organically raised? Oh, well, you know, you got to spray stuff or else it just doesn't grow. And it's like, yeah, it's bullshit. You know? Freaking lying to me. Exactly. Well, you're not doing it right. If you got to spray stuff, you've done it. Yeah. You know, you've got problems, buddy. So
you know, can I circle back to one thing?
Sure.
Though? I wanted to make one point when you asked about the organic versus grass-fed, pasture, natural. The one thing I try to hold I think at the top of that list should be pastured on green grass. So if you have a cow and you have a choice between an organic cow, which does not, you know, they can be in a feedlot fed organic grain and they're an organic cow.
Right.
So you have an organic cow versus meat from a pastured cow that's not organic.
Yes.
And maybe they used Roundup around the fence line. That is, but it's green grass. That is a much more nutritious food for you than the organic one raised on the feedlot. You're going to have far more of the CLAs and the omega-3s and everything.
Thank you.
In that pastured animal.
Thank you. I think that is a huge point. And again, that's one of the reasons why I tell people don't get too hung up on organic.
Right.
You know, as you know, with chickens, they are omnivores, just like pigs. And humans for that matter. So many things will say organic vegetarian feed on their chicken eggs, right?
Which means it was raised on concrete. You know, They didn't touch a patch of dirt with a worm or a bug on it if they're vegetarian.
Right.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And, actually what this also reminds me of is, you know, there is a farmer that I know of. You talk to him, and it's funny because the first time I met him, I was like, so why are you selling, you know, what made you get into the chicken business? Oh, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, what's the deal? I don't know. I just thought I'd buy a couple hundred chickens and I thought it might be a good business, right? So, and he's saying that they're grass fed and everything. So he shows, you know, a couple pictures. This is my farm, right? And, you know, you could tell the guy's just he doesn't know anything about why he's doing it. You know, has no background story about the nutrition or whatever that, you know, he feels that he's being part of something bigger than himself, right?
Right.
So I'm thinking to myself, like, what is going on with this guy? I bought a chicken. It was okay. It was, I don't want to say it was overpriced, but considering that I wasn't totally sold on what he was saying, I was like, yeah, I'm not sure I would do this again. Yeah. So I'm talking to people and it comes out that somebody else had the idea. And he heard this person say something. And not only that, but I then saw a picture of how he's really raising his chickens. Yeah. And, oh, yes, they're on grass, but they're in black tents and tiny little, like tunnels, like tiny little tunnels where they're not really getting the sunlight and they're not being moved.
Oh, wow. That's awful.
Yeah. And so.
Yeah, that's a feedlot chicken.
Yeah, totally. And, you know, but, you know, they're on grass.
Mm-hmm.
So they're, quote, grass fed, and they're just getting feed.
Yeah. See, he's doing nothing illegal by telling you that.
Right.
Not that I want those terms legislated. We need less legislation.
Yeah.
We need more ethical people.
Right. More transparency and if your farmer doesn't want you coming to the farm, well, your farmer's probably hiding something.
Exactly. Yeah. If they won't let you on the farm, there's a problem.
Yeah. And, and it's, I've noticed that there's some of them who will say, oh, well, the government regulations say that I can't have anybody, come on to the farm because blah, 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 blah. No, there's no.
Yeah, that's BS.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me before I'm going to let you go soon. I really talked your ear off here. But tell me a little bit about the raw milk controversy. We talked a little bit about the fact that it's not milk that's, the raw milk that's bad. It's the stuff we've done to milk that makes it potentially bad. What is the controversy and, why? Yeah. Why?
Well, again, 100 years ago, they started pasteurizing milk because of our world was changing. People were moving into the cities. The industrialization of America was happening. They're working in factories and they could no longer get their milk from the farms. So they decided to bring the cows to the city, and they were concentrated around these swill dairies, eating the spent grains. A dairy cow would literally have one calf. She would stay tied to her same stall her whole life. She wouldn't move until she died in her own pile of feces. They milked her to death. And people were not yet aware of how disease transferred through foods. They weren't washing their hands, and they were, a person with tuberculosis would milk a cow and make someone else sick. So,
right.
And the death rate for children under age 5 was 50%. So that was a very dramatic, terrible time, and something dramatic had to be done. And pasteurization was very helpful, and it helped, and the death rate for children improved. Well, I've heard that called an 18th century solution for an 18th century problem.
Right.
We don't have that problem anymore. We have the technology to make sure raw milk is safe today. The moment it comes out of the cow, you can do instant tests on it and get turnarounds very quickly.
Awesome.
So we no longer have that, but there's this huge political attack. It's kind of, I call it the poster child for food freedom. Instead of attacking all farm fresh foods, they just choose one, and that's raw milk. So anyway, it's unfairly attacked. If you produce milk in the right way, raw milk, you can produce safe raw milk 100% of the time. I know this, and I see this, and I teach people how to do this. But the problem is we have a lot of new farmers who leave their jobs in the city, and they buy their 5 acres and they bring home their milk cow, and they do not educate themselves, and they don't have the marketing skills. They can't sell their milk. They don't have it priced right. So they're losing hundreds of dollars a week. So they don't take the precautions necessary. I mean, we have hundreds of safety precautions we do in our dairy barn to make sure our milk is safe. Well, when you don't have the resources, financial resources to do that, those are the things that suffer. And then you can have an E. coli outbreak or something.
Right.
So again, we have this reason and need for more experienced farmers. Now, that doesn't happen very often. It rarely happens. People die, they'll do a recall of 1 million pounds of ground beef and have 7 people dead, and that's all fine. But if that were, people don't die from E. coli from raw milk. I think we haven't had a death from raw milk in 30 years or since they've been tracking it. So the statistics just aren't there to back that up.
Right.
But it's still unfairly attacked.
Right. And like military style. That's the scary.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this is insane when oh my gosh, I can't even, there was the one dairy in California, it was the food club that was attacked.
Yep.
Just disgusting.
Yeah. They'll do raids. They'll go in like you saw in the Farmageddon. They go in with their militia rifles and families' homes. Yeah, they treat you like criminals. I've had the health department out here, and they'll pull up, do a big show. They'll pull up in front of my car so I can't drive away, and they'll say, "I heard you produce raw milk. I want a sample." And I'm like, "Really? Okay, I'm happy to comply." And anyway, they do. They treat you terribly, like you're guilty of something, and it's awful. And it's just to posture and let you know that they can do you in at any moment. So we kind of take the brunt. Raw milk takes a big hit for olive food. But I do have to say, because I think you found me maybe through the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund.
Yes.
When I started with them 7 or 8 years ago, when I first became a member, raw milk was illegal in half the states in America, and they've worked steadily over the last 7 or 8 years to the point that I think it's only illegal in 10 states now.
Wow.
We only have 10 left. So we're making progress. But even in the states where it's legal, they still try to catch you up.
Well, in Pennsylvania, several of my Amish farmers were, they were taken in at gunpoint, with their families, these poor, little Amish children who, if they were lucky, got to 4th grade. Some of them, can you imagine how that scars a child at such a young age? Particularly a child who doesn't even see, regular technology, let alone guns. And having their dad hauled off as a criminal for providing a service to people who desperately need this healing food. Really, and like disgrace.
The most powerful healing food there is. I think it's no mistake that they have attacked the most powerful food because of the probiotics and enzymes and the healing powers of it.
Right.
Big
Pharma don't like that. Big Pharma does not like us knowing, how to take care of ourselves.
That's it. I know. Yeah.
It is quite a disgrace. And I always say that if the founding fathers ever thought that food would be under attack in this country, they would have written it into the Constitution that it couldn't be.
Right. Right. Of course.
It is the most illogical thing to my mind to, I don't mean to get too controversial, but I'll put it this way. I can get a permit to get a gun. I can't get a permit to get my milk.
Right.
There's a problem with, something that is designed to kill being allowed and something that is, could potentially, but then again, what couldn't actually hurt you? Something that maybe has a slight potential, but is not, that's not its intention.
Yeah.
And it doesn't hurt anybody but me.
Right.
So it's,
and the good it can do is endless. And, it's interesting because a year ago, we passed the marijuana bill here in Oregon. So marijuana is just treated so much better than raw milk. It's crazy. Like, I know. I'm a criminal because I have milk from a cow, and yet, everyone can go buy and smoke marijuana.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't deny that there's probably some healing benefits in cannabis as well, but
it's just legal, like it should be.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. But milk, come on, really? Oh, well, the government wants to, keep you alive. That's BS. Okay.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Tell us a little bit about what the Farm to Consumer Legal Defense Fund does and how can people get involved?
Well, it is an organization. It's a nonprofit, and it was sort of modeled after the Homeschool Legal Defense Fund.
Oh, okay.
And small farmers like me, we don't get subsidies. We're unfairly attacked. We have these regulations that are unfair and unbalanced put on us. Regulations for food are meant for these huge CAFOs and
exactly
and 100,000-acre farms and corporations, not a 3-cow dairy, yet they demand that we try to meet them. So it's a real struggle for farmers when they have legal problems. Of course, they can't afford an attorney. So the Legal Defense Fund is made up of several attorneys who donate a lot of their time or get paid very little for the stuff they do get paid for to defend small farmers. For instance, we had the first raw milk case go to trial last year in Wisconsin, and we won.
Yay!
Yes. The first trial. Can you believe they put raw milk on trial?
It's crazy.
I know it is. But anyway, it's this group of, and they are just, I'm on the board. I was elected to the board a couple of years ago, and we all donate a lot of time educating the public. And then the attorneys, of course, give a lot of legal advice. It's very easy to become a member. I think it's $50 for regular person, and then maybe 125 if you're a farm. It is so worth it, because think of what an hour, a cheap attorney would be 250 an hour.
Oh, yeah.
That's a cheap attorney. So I joined 7 years ago when I brought my first dairy cow home. And before I got on the board, I had probably 3 or 4 conversations with them about legal things that were happening, that I would have had to go to an attorney and pay for. And that was free. That was covered in my membership.
Right.
And then if they have to defend you in court, it's often at a reduced rate.
Right.
So their raw milk is not the only thing they defend. They work on all sorts of food freedoms. If you're at the farmer's market trying to sell your canned peaches and they unfairly attack you, they'll
Right.
work with you to challenge those sorts of things. There's overspray happening where organic farms are being sprayed by their neighbors, and crops are destroyed, and they've been involved in some of those cases. We're trying to pass laws to help with slaughtering of animals, which is really hard to find slaughterhouses because of the regulations. So they're trying to work with that. So they do endless good, and they're really wonderful people, and it's not that expensive. I mean, it's the cheapest insurance you could ever have.
Right. And as a consumer and advocate, I, support the fund as well, because like you said, with all the farmers that kind of went out of business, right? When you were trying to heal your children, it's really a no-brainer. It's just, it's one of those investments in saying like, okay, my farmer, I'm contributing to help my farmer be protected.
That's how I feel. If you eat farm fresh food from a farm, from a farmer's market, or become a member. If you're just a person eating good food, become a member, because you're supporting those farmers by doing that. You're there in helping their insurance policy there.
Right. It's that, be the beauty that you want to see in the world, or whatever that, that
Yes.
quote is,
Yes.
It's just, it just makes sense. And, I do encourage anybody listening, whatever you can donate, it helps them out. It helps them to do this good work and to ensure that when you need it, your food source will still be there. Mm-hmm. One thing that you mentioned to me that I didn't realize just before we started was you were on a series on PBS Food Forward TV. Tell us a little bit. What were you talking about there, and how did that go?
It was a wonderful documentary. I think it's about a series of 12 or 13 episodes, 30-minute episodes, and they cover a different aspect of food each week. So there's one on foraging mushrooms, and they actually go out and forage with the farmer. It's very hands-on. The people were there. And so, the directors, they came to the farm here, and the producers, and they filmed my whole process milking my cow. And I was involved in the dairy episodes. So there was my dairy, which is a small micro dairy. And then there was the largest raw milk producer in the nation, Mark McAfee. They went to his dairy, which is very different. And then I think they went to an ice cream store in San Francisco. So it was all about dairy. One of the episodes, and it was fun to watch the series. One of the episodes was on roadkill.
Ooh.
So, there's this whole thing, and it's somewhere back in the hills somewhere where there's like a roadkill festival, and they're eating squirrels and all that. So it was just exploring food that people are eating all around the US, and kind of the champions in that, people that are doing really good in their little niche, whatever it is. And one episode was on this woman. There's a seed library somewhere in Arizona where you can go get seeds that you can't get anywhere else in the world. And you check them out, you grow them, and then you harvest your crop, and you give some of your seeds back to the library for the next person. How cool is that? Because most of the seeds now are genetically modified too. So anyway,
that's like an uphill battle.
I know it is, but that was a very eye-opening. I learned a lot about other foods, things I took for granted and never thought of.
Yeah, next time you hit something on the road, stick it in the back of the truck.
Oh God, no.
Yeah, I think I'm not against roadkill. It's just I need to see it happen before. Like, I'm not just going to go grab something that's dead on the side of the road. Like here in Hawaii, we have a lot of wild pigs. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
every once in a while you see a wild pig on the side of the road or a goat or something like that. But yeah, I don't know when you were killed. I don't know why you died. You might have just keeled over from something else. I have no idea.
Gangrene or something. Yeah, it's not my thing. People think I'm really weird for doing raw milk, but I think that's a lot more tame than a
Well, you
dead
also
squirrel.
know where it's coming from. And raw milk, what's nice about it is like you can leave it in your fridge and it's like, oh, the milk went bad. I have cheese.
Oh, yeah. Or sour cream.
Or sour
Yep.
cream, right? So I'm just like, it's not, it doesn't go bad. It just morphs. It just does what it's supposed to do naturally. Which, normally we use different, agents, like rennet or what have you to turn it into whatever we want. With that, is there anything else that you'd like to add, Charlotte, before I let you go? Any tips for new farmers? Or do you want to just tell people where to find you online?
Sure. Well, our local farm, we have a farm store. We don't ship our products, but local here between Portland and Salem is shampooedcreamery.com. And
spell that.
yes, right. CHAMPOEG and then creamery.com. And then for farmers, I have my website, 3 Cow Marketing. It's the number 3 Cow Marketing, not spelled out, number 3.com. And that has all sorts of information and blog posts regularly and all the information about my courses to help farmers build a profitable farm. Probably the best, one of the neatest things I have going on right now is I have this private Facebook group for farmers called The Profitable Farm with Charlotte Smith. And it's free. And that is just been a real goldmine for farmers because it's a safe place for them to talk about their practices and their prices without being criticized by other people on Facebook,
Right.
And so we're in there supporting people. And if you're a new or experienced farmer, you'll want to be in that group. It's amazing the ways people are helping people out. And we keep it very positive. So the other day, a lady put up, her milk was $9 a gallon and some guy, another farmer criticized her in the Facebook group. And I said, whoa. And I said, that's not here. I said, this is the profitable farmer.
Right.
I said, raw milk is so expensive to produce that this is the kind, and he argued with me back and forth. And I was about to delete him from the group. And I finally said, this is a group where if a woman says she's charging $100 a gallon for her raw milk, we're going to say, you go, girl.
Yeah.
Because all of us who are raw milk farmers know what goes into that. And trust me, that $100 is nothing compared to what we've sacrificed. So that's been a really fun network for farmers all across America mainly, but also around the world.
Right, for sure. And, you talked earlier about the regulations and how they're designed for the big players, right? The big commercial dairies, for example. What people don't realize that one of the things, when it's not even necessarily just let's say the regulation on what you need to do, right, to produce it. It's the fees just to get the testing and just to get the label on your food. They're charging, they might, because this happened in New Jersey with daycares of all things. They were charging, the corporate entities that were in the, basements of the pharmaceutical companies and whatever, they're charging them $30,000 a year to, get some particular certification. But the little mom and pop deal, the person who's just watching a few, 6 or 7 kids in her home after school to make a little extra money, she had to pay the same $30,000.
Yeah.
And it's quite the same with farmers, right?
It is. One of the biggest ones that stands out is the raw milk. So California made raw milk sales legal in stores from grade A certified dairies. So now you can sell it in the store and be grade A certified and have as many cows as you want if you bought this $200,000 bottling system.
Yes.
So me with 5 or 10 cows would never be able to do that.
Right.
So basically, sure, we made it legal and you got to do this. So you can't have a business anyway. They really want little guys to disappear.
Yeah.
And not I haven't even gotten into taxes and workers compensation. And it's like, I don't even have a tractor. Why is my rate so high? Nobody looks at the little guys, whether it's the government regulations or the insurance companies or anybody. So, but you know what? We're only going to change it by those trailblazers getting out there and doing it and taking the brunt of it. And I build all those into my prices, and I educate my customers so that they understand that, right. I'm not doing this because we're getting rich. I have to charge this amount of money so that we cover the costs of this license and this fee and this inspection and this kind of insurance and this that is all required. And so our customers get it and they understand and they're happy to pay for it. And the farmers should pass that fee, pass that on. That's a cost of doing business. So it needs to be reflected in their prices.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Charlotte, for speaking with us today and for giving us just such a wealth of information, not only on the raw milk, but on what you can do to help farmers, because I want, I've been little by little investing more and more of my money into, these products, with my maybe not so famous, but, on the podcast before I've talked about my $5 a pound broccoli back in the early 90s, that I had that has now gone down to about $1 a pound. But, back then I made up my mind when I had the extra money, I was going to, buy the stuff that I want to see more of. And, right. And in that time it has moved forward. So, this is what people are talking about when they say vote with your dollars, folks. Don't, if there's something else, you might have to cut out cable TV, sign up for Hulu instead. Figure out where you're going to make your sacrifices and, what's important to you.
Yep. Everybody has the choice for farm fresh food, because if they're not choosing that, they're spending their money elsewhere. Right. Even people on lower socioeconomic levels, they're still spending their money. So it's a matter of choice. Everyone has the choice.
Absolutely. Except in Chicago, from what I understand, that neck of the woods, which by the way is the seat of the American Dietetics Association. They don't have health food stores and stuff. Even Dr. Mercola has to go to Pennsylvania to get his meat. Yeah. So
they should rise up and revolt.
You know what? That's the thing. Public outcry. It's, we're going to have to sadly, be marching in the streets to protect our food freedoms. And, I always say, why do, the Monsantos of the world, why do they have to use their powers for evil and not good? You're so smart, you figure out a way to do what you do, but, make your money without destroying the planet and destroying our health.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So again, Charlotte Smith of 3 Cow Marketing and Champoeg Creamery. I can't say it with a straight face because I know I'm going to screw up. Thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure having you on the show, and we hope to get updates from you in the future.
Oh, thank you. This has been really fun. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
The Nutrition Heretic Podcast is a production of Savor the Journey, LLC. Our audio editor is Nikola Popovich. Our podcast manager is Crystal McLean, and our operations manager is Linda Hansen. I'm your host, Adrian Hugh, the Nutrition Heretic. You can find us at nutritionheretic.com, where you can download the Nutrition Heretic's free shit list of 7 health foods to avoid like the plague. You can also listen to previous episodes at nutritionheretic.com/podcast. Be sure to like us on social media for updates. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/nutritionheretic and on Twitter @NutriHeretic. Contact us with show ideas, questions, or if you just want to be a guest. And don't forget to rate our podcast on iTunes and Stitcher. Thanks.